Hello. Today is quite a day for many of us Americans. It's the day after the US election, in which Donald Trump prevailed in terms of winning the election. And I have been fielding phone calls and messages for the past 7 hours now from women really seeking to understand what just happened. How did we get here? And you may be watching this and you may have voted for Trump. You may be watching this, you may have voted for Kamala. You may have not voted at all. You may have voted for somebody else. My intention of this message is less about political party preference. It's more speaking into what I believe is the underlying dynamic underneath what we're witnessing here. So my name's Gabriella Taylor, and I have spent the past 30 years really exploring the nature of the Western feminine psyche as it relates to how our brains and nervous systems have been shaped through thousands of years with an anticipation of mistreatment. So I have long been fascinated with neuropsychology, so the feminine brain, the feminine psyche, and also the feminine spirit, and the pulse of life, of the goodness of the divine feminine that is alive in every single one of us, whether we know it or not. And so I've spent many years both professionally exploring what does it mean to be a Western woman that is connected to a fulcrum of power that emerges from within, the power of love, of truth. And I mean truth not in a righteous way, but in a way that resonates with the truth, like universal laws, truth of honoring thyself and one another in this beautiful planet that we inhabit. And I have a strong tuning fork for that which is life affirming and that which is life destroying. And my perspective of witnessing this election play out, we left policy a long time ago, and it's really this dance between destruction and birth and regeneration. And I have long been fascinated by what motivates us as humans, but also what motivates us as women to do what we do. So I would like to speak some around what I see as it relates to the ongoing erosion of feminine power, over thousands of years, and how the impact has shaped what we are facing today in our lives in this very moment. And I really, my hope here is to really sound a message of understanding how we all got here, because I think every single one of us have played a part, and particularly if we are thrilled about what happened, and appointing somebody that leads with bullying tactics and threats and destructive tendencies. I'm curious about why inside that was okay, why that is something that we would vote for, or if we were on the side of holding for a new possibility that would be imperfectly ushered in through the Harris campaign. And so let us explore. So my intention here is perhaps it touches something inside that gives us a sense of, oh, how was I complicit to what occurred? Not from a place of reinforcing blame or shame, but from a place of really looking at how do we take our power back? Because we recognize that we live in a culture that really normalizes blame and shame. And to the degree that we are blaming those people out there, we're not getting anywhere. So let's sort of back up a little bit and look at this erosion of feminine power and how there's historical relevance that leads up to today. Because the truth is once upon a time, what we think of as feminine power, like our gifts of healing, of nurturing, of life-giving, was revered. Women were the wise women, they were the healers, they were the original physicians. We were seen as these beautiful contributors to society that knew something about loving and healing and connection. And our roles were deeply respected. And there was a shift from respect to fear and control, because over time, this very power that we were revered for, our ability to produce life and nurture life and tend to life, became the thing that was feared and then was systematically suppressed. And women's gifts began to be seen as threats to power structures, which has led to a very long history of dominance and control by men. And I want to be very clear here that I love men. We are all part of this together. And men have been conditioned very differently from how women have been conditioned. And we are all being called, I believe, to look at how has this thing called the patriarchy shaped how we behave, how we think, how we feel, if I'm in a man's body or if I'm in a woman's body. And it's different. And then there are ways that it's similar too. And my point is that there have been enduring themes across generations. Each of us in our family line, we can look back and see that there is a pattern of control and fear that has been present for thousands of years, and it remains deeply ingrained in today's society. So anyone that comes along that promises some salvation or some relief of like, I will protect you, even if the means are through destruction and violence, it makes sense why people gravitate towards that, because we all want to feel safe and settled amidst this world that we're living in right now that is so wildly unpredictable. And so I think it's important for us to look at a few things. What I am seeing is that this is a story of pain in America. To the degree that we have been deprived of the natural right to feel safe in our bodies, to feel seen for who we are, to feel accepted for who we are, eccentricities, quirks, differing opinions, to the degree that we've been deprived of that, which most of us have, we see a culture that is brokenhearted. And I sort of think about, I talk about how mad is the bodyguard to sad. And so we see a lot of people walking around in our culture that are mad and angry, aggressive, but underneath that, there is so much deep heartbreak. And so we see these big bullies walking around, or these very heartbroken young men that are opening fire on schools. But underneath all of these horribly destructive behaviors is a story of heartbreak, is a story of unacknowledged trauma in our own culture. And to me, this is what is outpicturing, and perhaps it's more on the surface than ever. Like, we've known for a long time that Americans have been in trouble. I mean, just look at the fascination with the beauty myth, look at the fascination of dominance and success through acquisition, and he or she who has the most toys wins and gives a sense of self-worth when there really isn't a sense of self-worth. And when we see behind the scenes how many of us have been suffering through isolation, through loneliness, through perhaps being surrounded by a lot of money, a lot of worldly power, but feeling miserably lost inside, we see that there's an epidemic of trauma in our culture that has been ignored, and instead stuff has been piled on top of it to distract us. Stuff meaning the Kardashian culture, stuff meaning social media, stuff meaning actual just buying homes and property and belongings. All of these are things to just keep us distracted from really looking at where we are being called to learn new ways to take care of ourselves so we can take care of others. And then when we look at the presence of mistreatment in our culture, and where it's been so normalized, and this is what I see, my perspective, in the volume of women that voted for the Trump administration, I'm like, oh, those are my fellow sisters that know a lot about being treated poorly by men, where it's been so normalized, it's not even thought of as weird or different. I know of what I have endured through bosses that when I was younger that would sexually objectify me, through having a female body that men thought that they could rape, and just that I somehow, my body was there to please them, whether they had to rape me through force or through drugging me. I know what it's like to have an angry father that would take his rage out on me. I know what it's like to be in romantic relationship with men that take their stress out on me. I know a lot in just my life alone what it's like to be subjected to men's um, misguided men's mistreatment of the feminine. And I don't know one woman. I don't know one woman that has not learned to tolerate mistreatment from their husbands, from their fathers, silence treatment or scolding of us, from husbands that demand, in the extreme end, obedience or submission, or just to do as they say, or demand that we be their emotional regulators. I don't, or whether it's sons that belittle or speak poorly to, or brothers, whether it's colleagues or bosses that have dismissed us or humiliated us or objectified us. I don't know one woman that does not have a history of having to just suck it up. Just suck it up. Men are being men and look the other way. And when I look at how many women, good-hearted, educated women, voted for Trump, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is our work. This is where we have become so expectant of men to use bullying tactics to gain control, to keep us safe. And to me, the story that I'm seeing is how much there has been this internalized acceptance of these unconscious, and this is unconscious acceptance over these unconscious behavior patterns. Like, let's be clear, I'm speaking to parts of our brain that are below the level of conscious awareness. And so where we women have, we might not even know what we're enduring because there are extreme expressions, and then it might be subtle. I had a client that would call it death by paper cuts, just like little subtle things that eroded at her sense of self-worth and self-esteem. And so, but the bottom line is we women have been justifying, explaining, tolerating, accepting men's misbehaviors, in colluding in the suppression of our own power and the misuse of dominant power. And because of this under-acknowledged trauma in the American culture, I mean, it's like, what is it? 53% of women have been sexually abused. 1 in 2 women have been in domestic situations of domestic violence. I think it's something like, and don't quote me on this, but 83% of women that speak up against workplace harassment or objectification suffer retaliation. So what we see here is that a lot of us are being mistreated, and B, when we actually speak up and dare say something about it, we get in trouble for it. So no wonder why so many of our fellow American sisters have voted for a petty tyrant, because it's probably what's been known, and particularly what's been known in the normalization of blame and shame. Like, we live in a culture that has not taught us to not only emotionally regulate, but how to self-reflect on, how am I participating in? How am I contributing to? How are these big feelings that are coming up in me that are causing me to say mean things or behave in unthoughtful ways? How am I actually contributing to the very thing that I say that I don't want? And so to me, this is something that we really are being called to look at, how, especially now, women are unconsciously supporting leaders that perpetuate dominance and control, and how we may be unconsciously supporting this in our homes, and how we ourselves are we're colluding with it, right? Like, this isn't about blaming women, it's not about blaming men, but we all have a part that we are complicit to how we got here. And whether it's to the degree that we bully parts of ourselves and shame parts of ourselves, or it's the degree that we want to fixate on the other and what they're doing so wrong and not take a look at all and our contribution to the thing that might have blown up or fallen apart, this is all a trauma response. So what I'm seeing is a major, the light is on. Like, we are seeing more clearly than ever how much we've lost our ways, and how much help we need to find our way back into kindness, caring, compassion, how to learn to discover to equally value our mental and emotional health as much as we might in our physical health, where there's this like fixation on longevity and youthing, and this fixation on surgical procedures that retain our youthful beauty. But there's very little recognition that, oh, emotional intelligence matters. What I'm feeling inside and discovering skills to help me with what I'm feeling inside matters. The way that I'm treating myself and talking to myself or talking about myself in front of my daughter, or allowing my husband to talk to me in front of my children, that's modeling it for sons and children, all of that matters. And so I think that I have a lot of thoughts and feelings about what's happening right now. However, the path through, in my perspective, is that this is a deep invite for each one of us to look at where can we take personal responsibility for reshaping some of these cultural norms. Where are, like, women, think about, reflect on, where or how have you been, or maybe you are unconsciously accepting or justifying or tolerating or settling for mistreatment in your life today. Today. Because what I found is that in order to break these spells that have been cast upon us, we have been existing under this big spell, the spell that if you're born a man, you have the power, particularly if you're born a white man, and that women, that the spell is that our role is to please other, to take care of other, and that our voices are here to serve other, to not upset other, that our bodies are here to please other, and that our roles in life are here to take care of others. So we've been born under the spell where men expect that and women go along with it because we haven't known any different. And so number one, we have to become aware. And this happens through self-reflection. Like the first step of reclaiming our power is by becoming aware of the forces that shape our thoughts, our feelings, our behaviors, and the ways that we are actively keeping ourselves small, silent, invisible, or where we have become aggressive and needed to harden up and become big bullies ourselves because it's a survival response. So self-awareness in how does aggression live inside of me? How am I tolerating mistreatment because I don't really think I deserve any different, or no one even told me that I had permission to like say, no, thank you, please walk away. I'm not okay with this. You can't speak to me anymore in this way. Because when we become aware of the gig, of what's going on here, then we start to break the spell. And then we have choice. Number two, it's like we have choice. Because once we're aware and we realize that, oh, we have the power to choose. We have the power to think differently. We have the power to connect with our values. We have the power to give ourselves and our daughters permission to actually speak up for ourselves. Then we're able to, when we have the power to self-reflect on what is motivating and driving our behaviors, whether it's being fixated on plastic surgery or overspending or settling for mediocre jobs where we are overperforming but under earning, like no matter what it is, their chances are there are things that we've engaged in today, yesterday, this week, in which we women have been giving our power away. And so we want to become aware. We want to recognize that we have choice. And then number three, we want to use our voice. We want to use our voice because from this foundation of awareness and choice, we're able to reclaim our voice to speak up, to say no, to set boundaries, to walk away from harmful dynamics, where we're able to name the thing that's no longer acceptable. We're able to have the conversations of, husband, I am aware that when we met 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I was conditioned by a culture that told me that my job was to acquiesce and go along with you, the man, the head of the household. And I acknowledge that I have led you to believe that I am okay with you barking at me or taking your stress out at me or critiquing me or controlling me. And I need you to know that no longer am I okay with this. And here's what's going to be happening next. The next time you bark at me, I'm going to leave the room. I'm going to exit the conversation. Like, we need to have these conversations where we use our voice, where we start speaking into the thing that we were once allowing, that we were perpetrating, that we were promoting, and start developing the emotional resilience to say no more. And this comes from a place of self-respect, because we have been actively promoting and allowing and permitting the mistreatment. And this is how I believe we reshape culture, we model new things for our daughters and generations to come, and we start taking our power back. So to me, this is really the call. This is the call to action that this election is resonating in me, that it is a call for the reclamation of feminine power, of feminine voices, and for us to look at that we are not a passive uh, onlooker to what's happening, that we each have a part. We each have a part. And so I think this is just really a place to reflect on what would it mean to honor, like, what would it mean to honor ourselves and to expect that others respected and honored us? What would it mean to actually stand in the strengths? Like, our strengths may be different from male strengths, but to stand in the strengths of our compassion, our collaborative nature, our intuition, and our wisdom once again. And this speaks for men too, because there are so many extraordinary men that are connected to the feminine energy inside of them as well, that also resonate with compassion and caring. So this is a call to action for all of us to begin looking at, how do I tend to the places inside of me that have lived in the shadows, that have caused me to mistreat myself and mistreat others, or to allow others to mistreat me? And how can I start getting the support that I need to make new choices and to use my voice to enact these new choices? Because I do feel that this is why I'm so passionate about self-leadership, because the way that we shift cultural norms is by creating a new relationship with our relationship to power. And in order to do that, we have to start naming the thing that we all have been asleep to or going along with. So these are just some of my reflections here. Is it's really a message of awakening to the power within each one of us that is supplied through the power of love, the power of God, the whatever that means for you, the power of the great creator, the divine intelligence. But there is an extraordinary spiritual power that sources through each one of us, that even allows us to be here. There is a grace that is present. And it is time, I believe, to step into reclaiming the strengths, and the power of the feminine is equal to masculine, in which where these strengths together balance each other and allow us to actually create new systems and structures in the world around us that are reflections of how our inner system is, our inner ecosystem is, and how we regard ourselves and take care of ourselves and honor ourselves and listen to ourselves. So my prayer here is really one to reflect on the roles that are playing out, that we find ourselves in our lives and with our loved ones and in our society, and where our roles, where there may be room for us to readjust some of the things that we've been settling for or holding back on, so that we can truly create a new possibility here. And I suppose the thing that's just here for me to close with is really a prayer. I'm an ordained minister, as well as serving in the field of neuropsychology and leadership development for women. And, I've had a long history of mentoring and consulting and coaching women. And I also have a deep um, love of my relationship with spirit. And so I just invite you to join me in a prayer if this feels right for you. So, Father, Mother, God, just here at this time, we bring our hearts together and call ourselves forward into your light, into your holy wisdom. And on this day that for many of us bears a shadow, we ask that we remember our strength. We remember our strength of heart. We remember the strength of love. We remember our strength of vision and fortitude, and that each one of us look within to explore our own personal relationship with power, our own personal relationship with where we have mistreated ourselves or allowed others to mistreat us, our own relationship with reclaiming our power through our voice and starting to speak up, make amends, take responsibility for how we have all collectively gotten here. We ask that at this time, a blessing of illumination and healing be placed within the hearts, the minds, the bodies of all Americans and all humans around the world. And that this healing allows us to start tending to the pains that we carry, that allow us to start mending, to start repairing the shame, the aloneness, the grief and the rage that we each carry, so we may find healthy outlets of expression. And so we just place in this light of the divine our country. We place our prayers for well-being, for hope and possibility, and for new avenues to open up that give us a steadfast path that leads into a creation of a world that works for everyone. And so we just ask at this time that love flow in to and around every single one of us, opening our eyes, opening our hearts, opening our minds to what we each can do to create a new choice for humanity. And may we honor the role that we've been in as Americans, as visionaries, as sovereign souls that are here to build and create things that have never occurred to before. May all paths lead in the direction of unity, of love, and kindness and respect for all. And so with this, we just ask that a blessing of light continue to spread out over the next days, weeks, and months ahead in service to the highest good. And so it is. So thank you for being with me here, and onwards and upwards, my friends.